Hello everyone, this is part 2 of What If Naruto was in Anbu at 6, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
It had been several weeks since the formation of Team 7. Though if one were to look at them it would appear as though the team had been set up just a few hours prior to receiving their mission. Sasuke barely tolerated his teammates, and while Hinata had on occasion tried to start conversation with the last Uchiha, there was only so much she would tolerate from the prideful Genin. Add to that the age-old Uchiha-Hyuga rivalry and you have two people that barely tolerate each other mutually. Then we have the final teammate. Though not particularly rude, the strongest of the group held his silence as if his life depended on it. Never speaking more than a few words, and even then it was only when it was necessary. Hinata continued her subtle attempts at uncovering the source of the boy's strength through conversation, but she could never get much of anything other than a few clipped sentences. Both the Uchiha and the Hyuga had tried to follow the boy on several occasions, but the masked Genin always eluded them. And poor Kakashi was caught in the middle of this chaos. The slightly dysfunctional team were now standing in the Hokage Tower. They had just captured the daimyo's cat, the orange furball scratching at Naruto's arm with useless futility as the blonde held him by the scruff of his neck. Each of the team members had different yet slightly similar thoughts. This is such a waste of my time. I should be training instead of doing this crap. Such stupid missions. I would have thought that Konoha would know how to handle their resources better. Finally, Ryoko and Karu are going to get Lai. Just a flick of the wrist to the right and this worthless Neko's neck snaps. A flick to the left and up and her spine is crushed. Which way would be best to kill this foolish cat without anyone noticing? Before the blonde could carry out his killing desire, the daimyo's wife showed up and took the cat. Naruto had to smirk as he saw the woman hug the feline to her breasts. He was glad he hadn't killed the feline. This woman's method for doing it was much more enjoyable to watch. Especially as he heard the cat's spine cracking and giving off minor snaps. Yes, the little cat's death would be slow and painful. He would have to pay the woman for her services. The Hokage clearing his throat brought him out of his thoughts. Now then, a new mission for Team 7, we have walking the Inuzuka dogs, painting the east wing of the hospital, cleaning out the horse stables, mowing the... His listing was cut off as Naruto spoke up, surprising his teammates and nearly making Sarutobi have a heart attack. Hokage-sama. His hollow voice rang out, which had a severe undertone of annoyance in it. I humbly request a higher ranking mission that these D ranks. As the words slipped out, he was half surprised himself. But his patience was frayed, his skills were dulling, and if he had to deal with one more of these chores, there was going to be an unauthorized death. Very soon. Sarutobi smirked. That had been the first kind of emotion Naruto had displayed to him in years. Even if it was just simple annoyance, progress is still progress. He contemplated whether or not he should deny the request just to annoy him further, but then thought against it. That might do more harm than good. He slowly nodded and shifted through his desk. Yes, well, we have a C rank escort mission to the Land of Waves. Should you choose to accept, you'll be guarding a man named Tazuna while he completes his bridge. Kakashi opened his mouth to try to warn his two Genin students of the slight danger this mission could bring, just so they would know what they were getting into when a concentrated level of killing intent washed over him. He slowly turned and saw Naruto glaring at him. Apparently, the blonde didn't want to take the risk that the two Genin would back down. In truth, Kakashi knew this form of restlessness. He had a case of it when he quit the Anbu. Having constantly lived on the brink of life and death to then just suddenly be a Junin, who didn't take nearly as many dangerous missions. For Naruto, who had known the bloodlust and battle high his entire life, to suddenly be on these slow laid-back D-rank missions must find it to be completely nerve-wracking. When there were no protests from Hinata or Sasuke, Sarutobi ordered for them to go get Tazuna. A few minutes later, an old man with a straw hat and a sake bottle walked in. Wah! I paid good money and all you idiots do is give me these three brats. They look like they'll be killed 5 minutes into the fight. Hinata and Sasuke glowered at the bridge builder. Hinata's eyes narrowed while Sasuke's fists clenched. Naruto, however, once again remained completely apathetic. Kakashi, Seeing two of his students were likely going to kill their client before the mission even started, decided to step in. He cleared his throat. Don't worry, these are the best genins in all of Konoha and you also have me. I'm a Junin. And if I can't handle it then Naruto most definitely can. He added silently. Tazuna hmphed and took a swig of his sake, muttering something like, whatever, under his breath. Kakashi turned to his team. Alright then, meet at the East Gate in 2 hours. That said, the team filed out of the room to gather their equipment for the mission. It was several hours later that the group of ninja found themselves on the road to Wave. Sasuke was at the front of the group, with Tazuna directly behind him, with Hinata and Naruto standing behind him while Kakashi stood a few feet behind them. The silence would seem almost oppressive were it not for the happily chirping birds around them. Hinata had, on occasion, asked questions to Kakashi, but other than a few short answers there was little interaction amongst the group. Tazuna was unnerved by the silence, as was Hinata and Sasuke to some degree. Kakashi didn't care all that much since he had his book. And a talkative Naruto possibly spoke like 8 words a day, so yeah, he was good too. Of course, both Hinata and Sasuke were too prideful to be the first ones to break the silence, and Tazuna didn't have much to say. But then, just as Hinata felt she was about to burst from the feeling of boredom, she caught sight of a peculiar thing. A puddle in the middle of the road. She silently activated her Byakugan and saw the figure of 2 men's chakra signatures. She was about to say something to Kakashi when the hollow metallic voice of her third teammate reached her ear, making a shiver crawl down her spine. Quiet, was his stern command as he kept his gaze forward, never even pausing in the slightest. Hinata hesitated for a moment before she decided to keep her silence. If she and her teammate had seen it, Kakashi must have as well. As soon as they passed the puddle, 2 ninja, predictably, emerged from the water and wrapped a bladed chain around Kakashi, tearing him to pieces. One down. One of the nins spoke. Before they rushed toward Tazuna. Sasuke leapt up and threw a shuriken, with enough force to pull the chain back until both the chain and the shuriken hit a tree. He then took out a kunai and threw it, hitting the center of the shuriken, pinning both the metal star and the bladed chain to the tree. Hinata acted then, moving forward at speeds that were quite impressive for a genin, and gave a chakra enforced palm thrust to both ninjas' stomachs. This would have normally damaged either their stomach or liver, but alas, the 2 merely vanished into puddles of water. Hinata and Sasuke felt their eyes go wide, and immediately Hinata saw the real nins come from her right, ready to wrap her in their chain. Before they even made it 5 feet, however, the black and red form of the third teammate appeared in front of her. The demon brothers continued running, unfazed by the new arrival. As they went to wrap the chain around him, however, both were caught in a one-armed headlock by the new arrival of Kakashi. Kakashi saw the slight twitch of Naruto's fingers on the hilt of his sword and sighed in relief. Sorry Naruto, but I want information. With the 2 nins currently unconscious in his headlock, he turned back to Hinata and Sasuke. Nice teamwork you two, he remarked lazily. Sasuke smirked and crossed his arms, and Hinata also looked rather smug at the accomplishment. Kakashi then turned to Tazuna. We need to talk. The bridge builder gulped down the lump in his throat. All right. It was several hours later that Team 7 found themselves walking down the dirt path that led to Wave Country. After Tazuna had told his tale, Kakashi asked his team whether they still wished to continue, knowing that the next shinobi they faced would likely be a Junin. Sasuke grunted his response, which basically translated into, I'm not backing down from this. Hinata had also voiced her opinion. It would be a coward's way to abandon a mission, especially one where others need help. He didn't even have to ask for Naruto's opinion. So after debating it for several moments, he figured there wouldn't be much harm in continuing, especially with Naruto as his backup should things go haywire. And now he found himself in this situation. Get down. The copy nin yelled, tackling Tazuna down while Sasuke fell to the ground on his own and Naruto covered Hinata just as a massive Zanbatsu flew over their heads. The group looked up to the sword that had stabbed itself into a tree just as a man with bandages covering his face appeared over the hilt. Momoki Zabuza, Kakashi said as he stood up and dusted himself off. Hitaki Kakashi, the famous copy nin of Konoha. The demon of the hidden mist said in a slightly amused voice. Kakashi lifted his forehead protector. Ah, the famous Sharingan, Sassoon. I'm honored. Still, this doesn't have to get too bloody. Hand over the old man and none of the little brats have to get killed. Kakashi turned to his team. Stay out of this, I'll fight him. Kakashi said, delivering a pointed glare towards Naruto, hoping the blonde had caught it. The confrontation was short, in comparison to most of the battles Naruto had witnessed. In the end, Kakashi was kicked into the water and was placed within a water prison. Well, it looks like you lost, Kakashi. Zabuza spoke up, smirking at his beaten opponent, but his smirk died on his lips as he saw Kakashi's own smug smirk. Why are you smiling, copycat? Kakashi's smile widened. Because your problems just got a lot bigger. Wah! The demon of the hidden mist began, but was cut off as a fist slammed into his face with a sickening crunch. The Kirinukanen was sent flying across the water, skipping and bouncing like a stone that was thrown across a pond. After about 3 skips, the Junin was able to regain his bearings and flip in mid-air to land on his feet, skidding to a stop across the lake's surface. He looked up and glared at the blonde figure that was just slightly shorter than Kakashi. He then felt the strange individual's previously masked chakra signature and had to hold back a gasp. Wow, what power, this guy, what kind of monster is he? Naruto looked at Zabuza as Kakashi rose from the water prison next to him. Disappointing, Hatake. Your skills have dulled considerably since you left the Anbu. Perhaps I should take over. His altered voice seemed to reverberate through the clearing, his released tenketsu sending waves of power through the air. Kakashi shrugged. He's all yours. Though, you're probably right. I do have to start training again. I'm getting rusty. The copy nin remarked, scratching the back of his head rather sheepishly. Naruto said nothing, instead he began walking towards the swordsman, unsheathing both of his scimitars, never pausing in his gait. Kakashi walked back to his students and client. Hinata looked startled, though Kakashi had been defeated by Naruto, a part of her figured it was partly luck and that Kakashi had been caught off guard. Sensei, what are you doing? He could get killed. Kakashi waved her concerns off dismissively. Don't worry, Naruto can handle himself. Zabuza stood and took a defensive stance. Whoever this boy was, he was on a whole other level. Kakashi had nothing on this kid, and seeing how easily Kakashi handed the kid the reins, it was safe to say Kakashi was confident in the boy's skill. Naruto's pace increased, from a walk to a fast jog and then to a full-blown run. He came in with a low sweep with the sword in his right hand, which was blocked by Zabuza. The blonde kept moving forward until his shoulder was next to Zabuza's. He then pivoted on his heel to spin around and swipe at Zabuza's midsection with the blade he held in his left hand with a reverse grip, but that too was blocked by the demon of the hidden mist. Zabuza then countered by wildly swinging his blade to strike at the Konoha nin. But Naruto moved forward, into his swing and head-butted the hidden mist ninja in the face, sending him reeling back. The blonde then moved and delivered a solid spin kick to the man's head. Naruto then leapt up, coming down with both his blades in a crisscrossing X. Zabuza placed his own blade in the way and blocked. Naruto batted the blade up, opening Zabuza's guard and then thrust both blades forward in a move that would have stabbed the Kiri ninja in the gut, but Zabuza was able to twist himself to the side, avoiding the 2 blades and then grabbed them, ignoring the biting edge of steel cutting into his hand. He smirked and raised his sword in preparation to bring it down on the kid. But before he could, a shadow clone puffed into existence and delivered a solid kick to the side of the swordsman's head, making his grip falter. Naruto pulled his blades back and cut 2 deep gashes across Zabuza's chest, not fatal, but extremely debilitating. Zabuza clutched his head and the 2 injuries before placing his blade on his back, beginning his hand seals. He spoke. You little brat. I won't let some punk like you beat me. Naruto then sheathed his 2 blades and began forming his own hand seals at a rapid pace. Zabuza noticed the boy's hands and knew immediately which would be his jutsu. The Kaiten, Koryu Enden. He smirked. The brat would lose this confrontation. He finished his hand seals at what would have been the same time as the kid, but Zabuza noticed with no little amount of surprise that the brat had added 1 more hand seal to the technique. A water dragon rose behind him and charged at the blonde. Naruto cupped his hand in preparation to breathe out the stream of flame, but Zabuza also noticed his other hand charging chakra behind him. What the hell is that brat doing? Naruto breathed out a huge stream of fire which took the head of a dragon. But then thrust his hand forward, a wind blast coming forward and combining with the fiery beast, making the heat and size of the attack nearly triple. Naruto smirked at Zabuza's terrified expression as the fire dragon plowed straight through his water dragon. Zabuza hastily formed a water wall, but the defense was too little too late as the dragon tore through it and engulfed him in the searing flames. He screamed in pain as the dragon carried him all the way to the end of the lake, where it dissipated, leaving scorched earth and the smell of burnt flesh in its wake. Zabuza weakly opened his eyes and saw Naruto approaching him, his slow steady pace calm and collected. Showing no hesitation. Zabuza's arms and legs were burnt horribly, the wounds the small blades of infused wind in the fire dragon had caused had been instantly cauterized by the searing heat. The blonde unsheathed his sword as he stood next to Zabuza and gripped the demon of the hidden mist by the throat, lifting him up until the man was at eye level. Zabuza stared, for once, seeing the cold blue eyes and froze in fear. Naruto raised his blade to the man's throat in preparation to drive it through. Die, came his voice as he reared the blade back a bit more. The blonde faintly caught the whizzing sound of a kunai but couldn't do much more than move slightly, making the blade hit the side of his throat instead of the jugular, most likely saving his life. He coughed blood, though it fell within his metallic face mask, and pulled out the blade with a sickening slice. He could feel the familiar burn of Kyuubi's healing as it worked on repairing the wound, but he could also feel something else. Poison, he thought as his vision blurred and he stumbled as a wave of dizziness hit him. He could faintly hear Hinata, Sasuke and Tazuna's surprised gasps and Kakashi's footsteps as the copy ninja made his way across the lake to reach him. He felt another presence appear next to Zabuza. He wavered slightly on his feet before he let out an angry roar and swung wildly, backhanding the mysterious ninja across the face with his fist, earning a glass-like crack that reached his ears. He growled, angry, furious. Careless fool. The last thing he felt was the use of a shushin and Kakashi calling his name. Hinata sighed tiredly as she rinsed out the wet towel in her hand. They had arrived at Tazuna's house roughly 18 hours ago. Kakashi had placed Naruto in one of the spare rooms and had tended to his neck wound, which Hinata found, to her utter astonishment, was almost entirely healed by the time they arrived. But still, dark blue veins were extending almost entirely throughout his neck, indicating that an extremely potent poison was coursing through his veins. From the red and black blotches that appeared beneath his skin, the poison was a corrosive one and an extremely potent one at that. That alone should have caused him to have died within just a few minutes after the kunai hit his neck. If the injury and blood loss wouldn't kill him, the poison eating away at his esophagus would have. He had broken out into a fever a few hours after his arrival. Hinata was sure he wouldn't survive it, but she had been completely shocked after his fever had died completely after just an hour or two after they had first detected it. Hinata had activated her Byakugan after that, her curiosity getting the better of her, and was shocked at what she saw. Blue chakra sustained him, pumping through his system at a faster pace than normal, while a ferocious red chakra was concentrated around his entire neck. She looked harder then, noticing that the chakra seemed to be battling something, most likely the poison around his neck as it tried to enclose itself around the wound. Its progress was slow though. She had informed Kakashi of this. Her sensei seemed somewhat relieved at the news, yet also alarmed. After a few more hours, Kakashi decided that they would each take watch over Naruto throughout the night, so that someone would know and be able to alert the others immediately should his condition change. He had taken first watch, staying up until sometime around 10 to 11. She was to take second watch until around 3 and Sasuke would take the rest of the watch until the others woke. So now it was her turn to care for him, and she was bored. It was such a level of boredom that it made dinner at her family's estate look like a festival of loud people. She finished changing the water in the towel, she set it over his head and settled herself against the wall to wait out her guard duty. It was just a few minutes into it that the silence began driving her insane. She let her eyes travel to her, now unmasked, teammate. His angular, lean features, whisker-marked cheeks and striking blonde hair made a strange mix of features really. He looked stronger than any shinobi she'd ever met, while somehow he also managed to seem more dignified than her father. She giggled slightly at that thought. That was a difficult task to pull off, and yet he did it in his sleep. She sighed at the thought of her father. Not wanting to take the silence, she decided she'd speak with her unconscious teammate. You know, Naruto, they say a good family is the key for someone's success. If so, then I must be one of the greatest failures in the world. My family has taken the term dysfunctional and practically reinvented the damn thing. She paused for a moment before continuing. I mean, seriously, who the hell takes their own brother, sister, cousins and daughters and put a seal on their head that practically makes them slaves on a leash? She gave a disgusted, very unladylike snort. Heartless bastards, that's who. she muttered through her teeth. Now, in the relative solitude of this room, some of her barriers could be let down, allowing her to speak freely of her opinions. She sighed, letting some of the anger leave her. She looked back at Naruto and smiled. You know, you're really a great listener. She chuckled slightly. This is how her hour passed, speaking simple one-sided conversations with her charge. Before she even realized it, her assigned hour had come and gone. She yawned. I'm tired, I wonder how much longer I have to. Her sentence died in her throat as she looked out the window and noticed the grayish hue of light giving way to daylight. Her eyes went wide, she shot to her feet and winced as her stiff joints creaked and cracked in protest. She went to leave but then decided to change Naruto's towel again. As she moved to lift the wet cloth from his head, a clawed hand shot forward and firmly grasped her wrist. Her eyes widened in alarm and looked down to his just as they opened, revealing blood-red eyes. They're wild, animal-like. She froze, a momentary fear gripping her, like an instinct, and had to soon hold back the urge to vomit as a wave of killing intent washed over. The air grew thick and heavy in her lungs. Before she could comprehend what was going on, she felt an arm wrap around her waist and she found herself outside the room, standing behind Kakashi. She sucked in an unobstructed breath, finally clear of that oppressive feeling. Naruto. She heard the copy nin call. Calm down. You're not in danger, he yelled. The others of the house were emerging from their rooms, each wondering what all the commotion was about. Naruto slowly stood, his crimson eyes shifting. Looking through the whole room, his eyes finally landed on Kakashi's masked face. He was mildly delirious, Kakashi noticed. A possible problem should the blonde consider him to be the enemy. His eyes shifted from the blood-lusting red to crystalline blue after a moment. Hataki, he heard the blonde whisper. Kakashi sighed in relief. At least he wouldn't have to fight the blonde again. That was not something Kakashi believed he could do safely without at least 3 or 4 more months of extremely intense, guy-level training. The red chakra and killing intent drained out of the room, and Hinata found that she could look at him again without feeling herself getting choked. Naruto hissed and clutched his neck in pain, remembering the last time he was conscious. He narrowed his eyes in anger. That hunter nin would pay, very, very dearly. He grunted and made to walk when a wave of dizziness hit him. He swayed on his feet and had to grasp the wall to keep himself steady. He clutched his head and resisted the urge to growl. What the hell had that blasted hunter poisoned him with? Kakashi, seeing his unasked question, spoke up as he ushered Hinata away and everyone back into their rooms. You've been knocked out for nearly a day, don't be surprised that you're still not at your full 100. That hunter nin hit you with one of Kiri's more exotic mixes. I'm surprised it didn't take you longer to wake up. He took out a plastic bag with the poisoned kunai on it. I had Packen sniff it and he says that it doesn't smell like any poison he's ever seen. He also said it smelled potent and was more than likely highly acidic in nature, so I suggest you take it easy for the next few days. Zabuza won't be coming back for at least, a week. Maybe even 3, and even then he probably won't be at his full 100, either, so you can rest. I'll handle Tazuna and training Hinata and Sasuke. Naruto shook his head as he slowly eased himself down. No, if your summon says that he has never seen this kind of poison, then that can only mean one of 2 things. Either it is a new poison that has not yet reached Konoha Anbu, or he made it himself. I find the second option to be more likely, since poison herbs can be found quite easily in Kiri. If so, then that hunter has obvious knowledge of herbs, both poisonous and medicinal, and, being a hunter nin, he has knowledge of human anatomy and functions. Therefore, he can speed up Zabuza's recovery. Kakashi finished sighing. I'd hoped you'd still be delirious enough to just let me take over. He muttered, scratching the back of his head. Naruto refrained the urge to twitch in annoyance at his former captain's laid-back response. Instead, he took a deep breath and spoke. Perhaps, you should guard the bridge builder while I train the Hyuga and Uchiha. Kakashi immediately responded with a resounding, resolute, no. He cleared his throat and regained his composure before he spoke again. I mean, you're still injured and I wouldn't have to return to Konoha with the Hyuga and Uchiha heirs half dead from whatever the hell you'll put him through. You need to get as much rest as possible. He finished somewhat lamely. Naruto hmphed, I will be fine within 1 or 2 days rest. I suggest you inform the Hyuga and Uchiha that they will be joining me for training, tomorrow at dawn. He leaned back against the wall and closed his eyes, indicating the conversation was over. Kakashi tried to think of something that would deter him, but other than his health he couldn't think of anything. He sighed and stepped out of the room. It appeared as if he would have to get flowers soon. Either for a hospital room or a funeral home. Hinata and Sasuke quietly walked through the forest. The sun was just peeking its golden head over the horizon. Kakashi had barely let them eat breakfast before ushering them out of the house. He said to just keep going and they'd reach a training field where they could, well, train. Hinata didn't know just how the hell they were supposed to train themselves, and Sasuke was wondering just why the hell they had to go out to a clearing in the middle of nowhere when they could have easily trained near Tazuna's house. Their questions were answered however as the trees parted, revealing their third teammate, clad in his black clothes and mask, waiting for them. Good. You have both arrived. He stated in his simple monotone drawl. Hours of meditating had dulled the burning in his neck to a dull throbbing ache. That still didn't mean he was through. He still had to regain the chakra he lost while expelling the poison. And the increased use of Kyuubi's chakra was throwing his control completely off. It would most likely take the rest of the day for Kyuubi to stop his chakra flow in order for Naruto to regain his chakra control. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. How the hell are you even standing? That hit to the neck would have killed anyone else. He asked incredulously. It is none of your concern, Uchiha. The Jinchuriki stated simply. Sasuke grit his teeth in anger and was about to speak before Naruto cut him off. I will not answer any of your questions, so do not waste your breath or my time. Sasuke glared at him. Hinata, seeing the tense atmosphere, decided to intervene before a fight broke out. She probably wouldn't have done this normally, since she knew her masked teammate would win rather easily against either of them. But Naruto had been hit with both a highly debilitating injury and a very potent poison, and for all she knew he could be struggling to stand. She stepped forward and addressed him. So, you will be training us then? Naruto nodded. Yes. I assume, Hyuga, that you have completed the tree climbing exercise, since your clan focuses on precise chakra control. He stated more than asked. Hinata nodded. Naruto then turned to Sasuke. Have you completed the tree climbing exercise? Sasuke grunted and crossed his arms. Why the hell would I learn how to climb trees? Naruto turned to Hinata. Show him the exercise and explain the purpose of it. Once you have done that, join me down by the river. That said, he turned and left the two, Sasuke glaring holes into the back of his head while Hinata turned and sighed tiredly. Shouldn't the instructor train the students equally instead of leaving one student to deal with the responsibility? Did that even make any sense? Hinata shook her head to clear the cobwebs and began instructing the last Uchiha on the chakra control exercise. Moments later, Hinata walked through the trees until she came across a decent-sized river, with Naruto standing along the embankment. He turned to her and nodded, tearing her out of her thoughts. Good, you're here. Now, is it safe to assume you know the water walking exercise? She nodded. He nodded back and shifted through one of his pouches before removing a card and tossing it to her. Now, mold chakra into the card and we shall see what your elemental affinity is. Hinata nodded and the paper card immediately became drenched in water. A water elemental. I suspected as much. Naruto seemed to pause for a moment as his voice escaped him with something akin to self-satisfaction, and Hinata could have sworn that a slow, evil smile spread across his face had it not been for his mask. Excellent, came his hollow voice, making a shiver go up her spine. Hinata lay panting against the hard ground. Her face was smudged with dirt, her clothes were torn, cut and burnt in several places. There were also hints of red, indicating that she was also bleeding somewhere. She weakly opened her eyes as the tip of Naruto's scimitar touched her exposed neck. I remained disappointed, he drawled. Hinata glared at him through her exhaustion. She struggled to stand, her leg muscles protesting against the strain. Naruto, though he wouldn't admit it, was mildly impressed by her stubbornness. Most people he had hit that hard wouldn't get back up for the rest of the day, if at all. And yet here she was, a mere genin upstaging them all. You have yet to complete your exercise, Hyuga. I expected more from you. Her glare increased tenfold. I can't concentrate if you keep on attacking. Do you expect your enemies to stand idly by and wait for you to attack? I suggest you begin your attack now before I decide to strike again. Hinata grit her teeth. She officially decided, right then and there, that she hated this blonde bastard. She formed a fast series of hand seals, making the water rise up behind her. As it began to take form, however, Naruto shot forward and began to attack her with simple taijutsu. Well, simple for him. For Hinata it felt as if she was fighting her father in a death match. She tried to keep control of her jutsu, but when she received a hard punch to the gut that literally had the air in her lungs screaming as it left in a hurry, the jutsu predictably collapsed and her along with it. She slumped over, coughing, clutching to Naruto in order to keep herself standing, as her legs had lost all strength in them. Naruto stared at her, heaving and coughing. With a grunt, he slung her under his arm like a sack of potatoes. Definitely not the most delicate person, Hinata noted dryly, but she had neither the strength or the will to get out of his grip. The trip was mainly done in silence. When they were near Tazuna's house, Kakashi appeared in a swirl of leaves. "Hello, you two," he said, and then raised an eyebrow at Hinata's disheveled state and her seemingly unconscious form under the blonde's arm. "Oh my god, you did kill her," he said as he hastily picked up a stick and began poking her. Hinata snarled and swatted the stick away since she didn't have enough strength to do much else. Kakashi sighed in fake relief. "Oh good, she's not dead," he remarked, tossing the stick over his shoulder. "Well, come on. Tsunami-san made dinner for us." That said, Kakashi lifted Hinata in a much more delicate manner, carrying her bridal style towards Tsunami's house. Hinata mumbled, "Never train with that guy. It's bad for your health." Kakashi chuckled. "I'm surprised you survived," he remarked dryly. Hinata sighed, "Save me some of the food, I don't think I can eat right now." Kakashi shrugs, "Sure thing." By the time they made it to the house, Hinata was already asleep. Kakashi took her up to her room and laid her on the futon. He closed the door and walked down, joining the others at the dinner table. Naruto had removed his mask to eat. The silence was somewhat tense, Tazuna and his family not knowing how to address either of the quiet boys. Surprisingly, it was Naruto who broke the silence. "Uchiha, did you complete the exercise?" Sasuke scowled. "No, I got up about 2/3 of the way up." Naruto was about to say not good enough, when Kakashi hastily intervened. "Oh, Naruto, I was wondering, what did you train Hinata in today?" "Nice save, Hatake." He mentally gave himself a pat on the back. "Her elemental affinity." Kakashi raised an eyebrow in surprise. "Really? Don't you think that might be a little much? It takes a great deal of both control and capacity in order to do anything even remotely damaging," he stated seriously. "She has the control, but she lacks the power. Luckily, she will not need it," he stated cryptically. Kakashi raised an eyebrow, but before he could say anything, the young boy, Inari, spoke. "Why do you all even train if you're going to die anyway?" The table grew deathly quiet. Sasuke glared angrily at the boy. Tsunami chastised her son. "Inari, apologize right now." "Why?" he said angrily. "It's the truth. Gato will kill them all." Naruto finished his food and began speaking as he once again placed his mask over his face as he wiped his hands. "Fool boy," he said, his voice once again hollow and uncaring. He turned to him, making the younger boy take a step back. When the blonde finally turned and began walking up the stairs, Inari regained some semblance of his former gusto. He was about to yell something out when Kakashi stepped in once again. "Listen, Inari. You can either stay here and let Gato roll over you, or you can stand up and fight. A great man once told me, there are no weak soldiers under a good commander." Naruto and Hinata were once again going through the same exercise of Hinata attempting to complete her task when Sasuke emerged from the foliage. They both stopped and turned to him, Naruto being the first to speak. "Have you completed the tree walking?" he asked simply. Sasuke nodded. "Show me," he commanded. Sasuke narrowed his eyes almost imperceptibly but obeyed nonetheless and walked up a nearby tree. Naruto nodded. "Good. Now, you will begin the second step of this training." He turned and stepped up on the water. "Water walking. What the hell is the point of all this?" Sasuke asked angrily. "Teach me something useful," he demanded. "Without enough control, my training of you would be worthless, Uchiha. I suggest you get to work, or find your own training." Sasuke glared at him and in a huff leapt down from the tree and left. Naruto watched him leave with indifference. He turned back to Hinata just in time to see her finish her hand seals. "Never let down your guard," she said with very smug smirk as a column of swirling water formed in front of her and shot straight towards the blonde Jinchuriki. Naruto stood perfectly still as the column of rushing water hit him with the force of a freight train. Hinata smirked sadistically at the fact that she had finally gotten the better of him. "Yes," she roared, momentarily throwing all poise and dignity out the window. "Are you quite finished?" The familiar voice stopped her celebration dead. She slowly turned and saw Naruto standing in the exact same place as before. Completely unchanged except for the fact that he was now soaking wet. Hinata gawked at him. How are you still standing? You said this was one of the most powerful water jutsu that you knew. Naruto nodded. True, but so far, we have merely been training in the forming of the attack. Now, I will teach you how to actually put a great deal of power behind it. Hinata looked puzzled as she spoke. But, isn't the attack strength equivalent to the amount of chakra one puts into it? I put roughly 1/4 of my chakra. That won't be enough to hurt that Zabuza guy, or that hunter nin. Naruto nodded, but Hinata was sure he was smiling beneath his mask. True, but I have a way to remedy that. Now that you've actually hit me with the jutsu, we can start the second part of your training. Hinata refrained the urge to cringe. And, just what is the second part? She could have sworn his eyes flashed red for a split second. Kakashi was standing on the bridge reading his familiar orange book when a familiar chakra reached his senses. He looked to his left and found Sasuke approaching him. Yes, Sasuke, what can I do for you? Train me, he demanded. Kakashi's eye narrowed almost imperceptibly. What? No please. Naruto was assigned to your training. He replied blandly. Sasuke, emphed, and crossed his arms. That idiot only trains Hinata and makes me do some stupid chakra control exercises. Kakashi looked to the genin. Did you finish tree walking? He nodded. And I assume water walking was next. He said, to which Sasuke nodded again. Well then, get to it. Kakashi said simply, turning a page of his book. Sasuke snarled through his teeth. This is ridiculous, he said angrily. He would have said more but Kakashi interrupted him. Sasuke, either you learn the water walking exercise, or you learn on your own. Believe me when I tell you these chakra control exercises will be necessary at some point, so you might as well get to it. Sasuke's fists clenched. He stalked off without another word. Kakashi sighed. Then he looked down at his book, giggling perversely as he turned to yet another page of his seemingly never-ending story. Kakashi was once again standing on the bridge, watching Tazuna as his handful of men continued to work on their respective tasks when a thick mist rolled in. He shifted his eyes from left to right and placed his book in his pocket before walking next to Tazuna. What a strange mist. It came out of nowhere. The bridge builder muttered. Tazuna. Kakashi spoke seriously. Gather your workers and leave now. Noticing the seriousness of his voice, Tazuna knew that something was about to go down. Guys, work's over for today, go home now. He called to his men who all grumbled in response, leaving. Tazuna, go get the rest of my team, they should be in the forest near your house. Kakashi spoke seriously, uncovering his Sharingan. Tazuna nodded and immediately ran off. Kakashi watched him leave from the corner of his eye and then turned to the thick wall of mist that slowly encroached on him. Well Zabuza, I didn't think you'd be back on your feet so soon. Kakashi remarked blandly, spreading out his chakra to dispel the mist around his immediate area. You obviously underestimated me, Kakashi. Came the demon of the mist's voice from all around him. Kakashi looked, eyes darting this way and that way, and finally saw both Zabuza and the hunter nin that had rescued him appear out of the mist, like specters or ghosts. Zabuza unhooked his Kubakiri while Haku vanished into the mist. You don't seriously think you can beat both of us? Kakashi took out two kunai. I don't need to beat you, I just have to stall you until Naruto gets here. He said, smirking. Ah, you put too much faith in that kid, Kakashi. I've seen him fight, he won't catch me off guard again. And this time, he'll be facing both Haku and myself. Still, I'm surprised he's alive. Kakashi laughed mirthlessly. You're still underestimating him. Do you want to know by what alias that boy is known by throughout the world? Zabuza raised an eyebrow. Sure. Why not? It's similar to your actually. The demon of Konohagakure. Kakashi said, his mask curved upwards in a malicious smile. Zabuza immediately stiffened. What? That kid, is the Konoha elite who allegedly killed the lightning daimyo and his entire guard. Kakashi smirked. Over 50 enemy ninja, not even I could do that, Zabuza, and neither could you even with the silent killing techniques. Zabuza snarled. It doesn't matter, I'll kill you now, then I'll kill the brat. He spat out before vanishing into the mist. Kakashi stiffened as a dome of ice mirrors appeared around him. Well now, this could be a problem. Kaiten, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Sasuke yelled, sending another fireball towards a now heavily burnt tree. As the fireball crashed against the wood, the tree gave a long groan of pain before it toppled over. Sasuke would have started another set of hand seals, but just then Tazuna burst through the tree line looking frantic. Sasuke turned to the older man with a puzzled expression on his face. What's wrong? Tazuna panted hard as he leaned on his knees. Kakashi, bridge, trouble. He gasped out. Sasuke's eyes widened slightly. Come on, Naruto and Hinata are this way, he said, running off, Tazuna groaning as he followed. I'm getting way too old for this crap, he muttered, following the Uchiha. Moments later the two came across Naruto and Hinata. The girl was standing atop a river while Naruto stood a few feet away. When they both noticed Tazuna's presence, they stopped their exercise and turned to them. Tazuna says there's trouble at the bridge, Sasuke said. Naruto nodded and shifted through his pouch before pulling out 2 soldier pills. He tossed one to Sasuke and another to Hinata. Take them, they will replenish your chakra. The two took them wordlessly while Naruto formed 2 shadow clones. Tazuna, these 2 will escort you, he said before turning to his 2 teammates. Uchiha, Hyuga, I suggest you keep up, he stated simply before taking to the tree tops. Who the hell said he was in charge? Sasuke thought, annoyed. Hinata followed close behind the 3rd teammate. The 3 came across a mist-filled bridge. Naruto turned to Hinata and Sasuke. Uchiha, you come with me, Hyuga, you know what to do, he said before walking ahead. Hinata nodded once before activating her Byakugan and leaping off to one side of the bridge, vanishing into the cool mist that blanketed the area. Sasuke was annoyed. He and Hinata had formed some kind of plan, and not being in on it was grating on his nerves. His teeth, and walked up to Naruto, grabbing him roughly by his shoulder. Hey, he began, but was immediately cut off as the blonde rounded on him and gripped his throat with a grip, strong enough to stop him from speaking, but not strong enough to cut off his air supply completely. This battle, Uchiha, is no place for your petty pride, and whether you like it or not, I am in charge. Quite frankly, were it not my mission, I would leave you to your foolish and worthless fate. However, seeing as how your and the Hyuga's survival is my responsibility, then I must take the proper measures to ensure your safety. Therefore, Sasuke couldn't do much else other than cough as the living weapon smashed his fist into his gut. His eyes rolled to the back of his head and he fell limp. Naruto, with a casual flick of his wrist, tossed him aside, forming a shadow clone to drag him away to safety as he continued his trek into the mist. He came across the scene where Kakashi's fight took place moments later. The area was littered with senbon needles, puddles of water, shuriken, kunai, blood, and a large jagged trench ran across the ground, no doubt the result of Kakashi's infamous Reikiri. The copy nin himself was leaning against the railing of the bridge, a large slash across his chest, which he had cauterized to stop the bleeding. Several more gashes ran across his arms and legs, but none were too serious. He walked over and knelt beside the fallen copy ninja, checking his pulse, noting that he indeed was still alive. Kakashi groaned, opening his eyes blearily and looking into the shadows that cover Naruto's face. You're late, he managed to whisper out before falling unconscious again. HN, was his bland reply as he stood and unsheathed both his scimitars, before walking further into the mist. Kakashi was barely out of his visual range before he felt a shift in the air. He took one step back as Zabuza's massive Zanbato swung across his face, nearly hitting him, before vanishing again into the thick mist. Naruto stood, perfectly still. He felt another shift in the wind and managed to sidestep in time to avoid another swing, which buried the sword deep into the ground. Zabuza pulled the blade out and once again vanished into the mist. You can't keep this up forever, kid. Zabuza's voice echoed around him, hoping to distract him. Naruto knew. Seconds later another swing came from behind him. Naruto this time was able to detect exactly where it was coming from, and he pivoted on his heel, blocked Zabuza's blade with his own, the metals meeting with a loud clang of steel hitting steel. Zabuza chuckled. The demon of Konoha. Really? You're not so impressive, he stated. Naruto pushed him off and spread out his chakra to dispel the mist around him. Naruto said nothing as he settled himself into a fighting stance. Zabuza leapt up high, bringing his blade down on the young Jinchuriki. Naruto crossed his blades and blocked the strike. Your pet hunter Nin is not here, the blonde asked, dubious as Zabuza beating Kakashi so badly without receiving much injury was highly unlikely. Zabuza chuckled. He's around, but I don't need him to beat you, he stated. HN. Naruto replied before shoving Zabuza back. He followed it up with a leaping spin kick to the man's neck. Zabuza ducked under the blow and then tried to hit the blonde as he landed with a downwards diagonal swing. Naruto put the blade in his left hand in a reverse grip blocking the strike. He then spun around while somehow managing to keep the blade in the same position and delivered a swift sweep kick. Zabuza grunted as his back hit the floor. He placed both hands on the ground over his shoulders and lifted himself up, spreading his legs and spinning with a split kick. Naruto, as a result, received a kick square to his lower jaw, sending him stumbling back. Zabuza righted himself and charged at Naruto, picking up his sword mid-run and swinging it in an attempt to cleave the blonde's head off. Naruto, by reflex, leaned back just as Zabuza's blade swung across, extremely close, so close in fact that Naruto could feel and hear the very tip of Zabuza's blade scrape against his face mask. As soon as the blade passed, Naruto sprang forward, leaping high and delivering a solid knee right between Zabuza's eyes, sending the man reeling. He raised both blades as he passed over and brought him down to stab the man in the chest when a mirror of ice appeared between his blades and Zabuza. The two scimitars pierced the ice mirror, making various cracks appear all across it. Naruto pulled out both blades and leapt back. Haku's form appeared in the cracked mirror that was already repairing itself. "I will not let you harm Zabuza-sama," he stated. "Ah, the dog comes to defend the master yet again." Naruto spoke blandly as he turned to Zabuza. "You would have this one fight all of your battles, Zabuza," he snorted. "You are no demon. Just another weak shinobi that hides behind a shield." Zabuza glared at Naruto as he picked himself up. "Haku, stay out of this," Zabuza said, snarled as his eyes burned with anger. Haku looked hesitant for a moment before he nodded, and both he and the mirror vanished in a swirl of water. Naruto would have smirked, so predictable. Taking on one was easy enough, taking on both, not so easy. Zabuza stood and charged at Naruto again, aiming his strike to the blonde's legs. Naruto jumped up. As the blade passed beneath him, he kicked it down hard, making it hit the stone floor of the bridge with a screech of metal against rock. When he landed, he immediately delivered a quick kick to Zabuza's face. He remained on one leg as he bent his leg back and delivered another to his ribs, followed by one more to his face and then a roundhouse kick with his other leg which sent Zabuza face down to the cold hard floor. Naruto rushed forward, but Zabuza regained his bearings in time to deliver a mule kick to the blonde's chest, using him as a platform to roll forward and get back to his feet. Naruto grunted as he wiped his chest free of some imaginary dust. Zabuza's brow was marred in sweat and he suddenly felt drained. "What is this? What the hell is going on? What's wrong with me?" "HN," came Naruto's hollow voice. "I see it is already taking effect." "What is?" Zabuza growled out. "You see, Zabuza, there is a small detail of the hidden mist technique that not many really know about," the blonde stated, in a flat tone, not even hinting at any emotion. "When the mist is created, there is always a minute amount of chakra that remains in each droplet in order to keep it in place. After just a few moments, the chakra is dissolved into nothing, which means it must constantly be replaced by more chakra. However, the chakra is so minute you hardly really notice it. You have used this jutsu so much that it is practically a subconscious exercise." A slight pause. "Therefore, you have not noticed that my own partner has been draining the chakra from your hidden mist in preparation for her own attack. Judging from how you look, I would say she has roughly 1/3 of your chakra. Add to that the chakra you spent fighting Kakashi, which would be about another 1/3, and finally the fact that you have been keeping this thick mist up for so long, that would be another 1/3. Meaning that you have nothing left." "Bullshit. No one can see and manipulate chakra to such an extent," Zabuza said, his voice coming out with more conviction than what he truly felt, as he felt even weaker and weaker with each passing second. "Ah. But this person has a bloodline, specifically designed to see chakra." Naruto turned his head. "Hinata," he called, and in seconds the mist seemed to swirl about and condense. Roughly 20 to 30 feet away was the Hyuga heiress to their right. The mist condensed, finishing her hand seals. Hinata yelled out, "Tsuten, Daibakufu no Jutsu." She poured all of her chakra into that technique, adding to that what she had stolen from Zabuza already. The girl was so close to him he didn't have enough time to dodge. He raised Kubakiri to act as a shield, but in doing so, left his side wide open. Before Hinata's attack hit him, an ice mirror appeared between the pillar of water and the demon of the hidden mist. The pressure of the attack cracked the mirror but did not break through it. Naruto frowned in distaste and was about to move forward and finish Zabuza himself when movement caught the corner of his eye. He looked and found the hunter Nin approaching Hinata, ready to kill her. Naruto shot forward, leaving Zabuza and appeared between Hinata and Haku. He charged wind chakra in his right hand and compressed it, forming it into a tight ball or grenade of chakra. Fuyuten, Shaha. The ball of tightly compressed air exploded in Haku's face, sending him flying back like a rocket, skidding across the floor, leaving a trail of dust in his wake. Naruto relaxed. After that attack, the hunter Nin was most likely dead or unconscious. He turned back to Zabuza. Hinata's attack finally shattered the mirror and slammed into Zabuza, who did not have the strength left to stand up to the attack and was overwhelmed. Naruto saw the pillar of water slam into the edge of the bridge. Finally it died down. He turned to Hinata, who was on her hands and knees, panting after the exertion. Rest, was all he said before walking towards the now crippled Mist Nin. Zabuza was slowly trying to stand. The attack had broken 2 of his ribs, and the eventual hit against the edge of the bridge had also broken his left collarbone, leaving his left arm nearly useless. He looked and saw Naruto approaching him. He blinked and the living weapon, directly in front of him. He snapped his eyes up and tried to swing his sword. Naruto sheathed the one in his left hand and caught Zabuza's wrist, stopping his strike. He then reared back his other blade and with a swift, sickening slice stabbed the demon of the hidden mist straight through his stomach. Zabuza's eyes widened as he hunched forward. Naruto's eyes widened slightly when Zabuza exploded in a cloud of smoke, revealing the hunter Nin. Naruto turned and saw Zabuza, struggling to stand where the mist hunter had lain at the end of his wind shockwave. He turned to the hunter Nin, whose mask had broken due to the chakra-enforced attack, revealing a feminine face. You took his place. Naruto sounded genuinely puzzled. Why? Haku coughed up blood, staining the gray floor of the bridge red. Because, he rasped out. He is someone I would protect, at any cost. Even your own life. Haku nodded, and smiled at the taller blonde. Was this a mission given to you? It's a mission I took on myself. Why? The feminine boy let out a small laugh. You'll have to learn for yourself. Naruto didn't move or say anything for a moment before he raised his left hand. Rest. With a swift chop, Haku's neck broke and he slumped, dead. Naruto pushed the Kirinin off of his blade and then turned to Zabuza, who was now standing upright. The blonde would have moved, but that's when there was a loud clapping coming from one end of the bridge. The two turned and found Gato and his men. Well, Zabuza, getting your ass kicked by a bunch of kids, I see. Zabuza grunted and turned to Naruto. It looks like my fight isn't with you anymore. Naruto could say one thing about Zabuza's final battle. He certainly lived up to the name, Bloody Mist. Naruto stood before 2 graves deep in thought when he felt someone approaching. He didn't even have to turn to see it was Hinata. We're waiting for you down at the bridge, she said. Hinata, came his hollowed voice. When you look at these 2 graves, what do you see? He asked. Hinata didn't know the answer other than the obvious, dirt and a cheap grave marker. So she remained silent. Naruto answered after a few moments. When I look at these graves, I see only that these 2 shinobi stand as a testament to this continent's twisted history of death and betrayal. One that is a never-ending spiral of hate and war. Hinata remained quiet for a moment before she spoke. I always knew there was something different about you, where most would see 2 shinobi who died side by side, regaining their lost honor. You see the hard, cold reality of things. She turned and began leaving. Before she was out of earshot, she looked over her shoulder and spoke. You are, possibly, the most intimidating person I've ever met. What made you that way? HN. No more words were exchanged as Hinata turned and left. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.